Jim, last week you said something that I want to understand more. We were talking about technology and virtual reality and the impact on this fast-moving technology on the human condition. And you said the soul operates in a similar way to the technology. Yep. I don't quite get that.
So everything is happening externally is because of what goes on internally. So in the transformation that we're in, now we've been talking about this for years, 2012, the shift, the new operating system, things are changing. And it's taking some time for the transition to begin to be in motion. And so all of this is about this shift in consciousness. But as humanity begins to get more and more closer to the soul, as humanity begins to be in a fifth dimensional reality, well-being, co-creation, etc., there is consciousness. Everything has consciousness. The chair has consciousness. It's aware of itself. Now, it doesn't think, it's not the soul, it doesn't have a processing capacity, which is where we're going.
How is it aware of itself?
But every atom in the universe is aware as it's conscious, it's aware of itself. But it doesn't think like we're talking thinking and processing. But when you get to the soul level, the level of consciousness and understanding how the larger everything works, the ability to process that, think through that, understand it in instantaneous fashion is how consciousness at that level of awareness processes. And so an awareness of universes, of galaxies, of all of that, that's what the soul has the capacity to work in.
Is it kind of like on the iPhone, I go onto Amazon and I'm looking for a moringa powder. I'm looking for something. And I look for it, I don't buy it, or maybe I do, and then I go about my day, and all of a sudden the ads are all coming up, this certain thing that I looked up. So there's an algorithm, somebody's watching me, and there's an algorithm that notices, oh, she clicked on this certain kind of powder, let's give her all these ads.
Well, that's not where we're going, but that's let's say the flip side of all this artificial intelligence in machine thinking, machine knowledging. The machine is beginning to become not only conscious of itself, but have a consciousness to process. Okay, so this is the early aspects of becoming conscious as a higher dimensional being. Now, keep it clear. So there's a machine side, and there's a process of human evolution. All right, so it's there's two pieces. And the machine side, if you want to talk artificial intelligence going on into the near future, we haven't even scratched the surface. You got a number of things that are happening right now where machines are learning to think. And they're learning very, very rapidly. And they're in a process of artificial intelligence that is interesting. But when the machine starts to think and process on its own, which is a next iteration, that's going to be really a little dicey. Because if there's no sense of guidance to the machine, or if the greed level that you see in terms of non-connected mind structuring right now, corporations aren't accountable to the individual, the humanity, they just make a profit. If that mindset drives technology, there's going to be some really challenging times because, for example, Jack Ma, who is the founder of Alibaba in China, Alibaba being bigger than Amazon right now. Jack Ma, a brilliant mind. He basically said at Davos conference not so long ago that humans can't compete with technology at this level. The brain cannot compete with it. So technology is really about work. The machine is about doing all the doing. And the process, he said, we have to pay attention to. Humans are about living life. And so his point was you've got to begin to really educate very, very differently into the arts, into music, into science, into coordination, between teamwork and co-collaboration and enjoyment. That's what the human is all about. And I'm in agreement. That's what the human is all about. But this technological split, where it's sitting right now, is one, if the human isn't conscious at the level beginning to make sense, to drive us into that life level that Jack Moss speaks of, it's going to be a very different human species going forward. So now come back to where so many of you all are playing in Mastering Alchemy, and one of the fundamental tenets of Mastering Alchemy is tools that allow you to discern.
Yeah.
And discerning allows you to choose. And all the place we're going is, how do you basically begin to really know yourself and then step into that living light body and stepping into the soul. Now, this is the part that becomes both exciting and challenging. So from the standpoint of everybody who's listening, from a spiritual standpoint of evolution of a human species. So when I say the soul thinks understands in such a vastness, we can't comprehend it. But the processing structure, the calculations, the understanding of everything is very much done by the soul in the simplest ways that we're now calling artificial intelligence. And so the processing capacity of what we call machine learning artificial intelligence is absolutely mind-boggling to us and fascinating and threatening at this point. But to the soul doesn't process for revenge, and those words don't exist in its space. That part of humanity, the third, fourth dimensional space of separation and jealousy, rage, anger, fear, doesn't exist in the soul. It's part of the human condition. So the evolution of the human condition is being presented right now in terms of, here's how you begin to process, think, understand, be conscious and aware as a spiritual being. So one of the things that I get to play in and watch from this living light body space is the brain is, we've all known, brain is just non-functional. I mean, 5% of Einstein's brain was supposed to be working. Well,
what about the rest of us?
What about the rest of us and the rest of the brain? So the brain is being reconditioned right now. It's turning back on. It's being organized. It's what we do in Mastering Alchemy. But the process of thinking in this huge vastness that we're starting to label artificial intelligence is how the soul understands consciousness. And so in this living light body space that's being created, beginning to reconstruct yourself into a higher consciousness, Mastering Alchemy, and then beginning to have access to you, the soul, all of a sudden you begin to have that processing capacity. And from that higher multidimensional level of a Christ consciousness, a Holy Spirit, an alignment with Creator and Source, the ability to use that for expanding the human condition, building effectively a new human being, is what we're dealing with.
I think the key to all this is the word discerning. And in order to discern, a person has to kind of pull away from the noise out there and get in their own space and observe it from that place.
Yep.
And there's not a whole lot of training out there to do that, and especially the little kids, teenagers, whatever, who are on these devices, they don't have that ability to discern.
No, they're just moving right along playing. No,
and they're being affected by it.
Well, maybe. So yes, clearly. And who are these new kids? Remember, we've been calling them indigos
right.
and Blu-ray and all these other labels we've been saying for the last 20 years, and aren't these new kids going to be interesting? And it's like, here they are. It's like, no, they're not interesting. Well, yes, they are. They're playing at something right now. So the real question is, where is the empathy? Where is the consciousness to choose a different kind of life? So from an older age group of people looking at these new kids, we could be doing to them what our parents did to us, rock and roll and television, and you're going to hell, and what's wrong with you, and everything's going to change for the worse. So you're watching this process. Let's go back to last week where we talked about virtual reality. This is a conditioning of how thought is thought. And it's not being conditioned on your terms to a great extent. So your word discerning here is really important. Can these young people discern?
And maybe they can. We're viewing that situation from our eyes, from our filters and our boxes. They're reacting to the devices much differently than we might have when we were that age.
Oh, absolutely. And so if you think about it, what they're doing is, let's take Jack Ma's Life is for Living. And you look at a lot of these young people, and all they want to do is, they don't want to invest in their 401s. They don't want to basically be out working. What they want to do is travel and experience and have different awarenesses of things. So you go back to Jack Ma, and what's life about? Living.
Living.
And do we live? Not so much. 2 jobs, you know, trying to figure out if I'm going to have a retirement. We worry. We sit in a stressful place. And so it's real interesting. Let's do this. Let's come back next week and talk about that stressful place, because in a way, if I said to you, if you had all the money, everything you could possibly want,
what would you do?
What would you do? What would living life comfortably be like? And the bigger question is, can you do it? Because, oh yeah, I'd love this. Well, you love it over and over, but you can't travel anymore because you've seen everything. You've got all the money in the world and you don't want anything. What's going to make your life interesting if that was your condition, where you were completely capable of enjoying yourself? Now, the first reaction is, oh yeah, no problem, I would do that. So for the next week, think about, you got everything, you've satisfied everything, you don't have to worry.
Now what?
Now, how would you live that experience?
Good question.
Okay, we'll come back and revisit it next week.